Jalo wulu winywa man street voices kama jui wanywa yeta lakom gutiano wa kivulu wa magibiri digwe kikata kwa gibiru kere anya mugara shele tisha #man #bula yechulu pere kineno kita wabiru kalok kere karma pol tamu wanywa pole kwa vulu ti gina tel maki wati lakom vulu ma wiwa mirpu wilie kwa neno vulu wa ikin gai the town why the street kiti wati kilutiano awobe wakanyane wen magitiyo ki yari mapari and gini inini tero ti konkwoge tutwal ma te pere tek wanone pere tek yarwa mabiruka malaki ye ki bene nongo tam ki bod dakta ma oroto ngeo gi mo matori ye chitin atie wan ki dakta chen manye mak miete en ajol en bene tota tieta yarwa afoye.
Yes, afoyo dano magitika neno wa an niak luoni Dr. Mark Otim ati pakta Uganda an watiyo ikum dano magitiyo ki yen makelo nyepe marach. So anafoyo abiteto maduong kawameta nyim.
Afoye. Kita mango tieta kere ni anti pakta. Da pakta tie dola tel ma wan wabiru ka nata kedgi kar ki kare. Meme yung phone ki vulu ma megwani lakom tit ki yari ma pari. Ti mak afoyo kwani kar ni maybe yung badwa kan ki kanywa kabetaman kedwa. Jui wawara kian gang wachara walogo wagoro vulu ma pari walogo kedgi. Eto tion be watamu ni ngoni kero walo ki vulu jomu kana betie ikian gai magian begi kar ki peke inini dak vulu ni inini bena gi ake gai ma pari ti lokman be miro wadu tiar wa bod gi bena pere teke dano bena ngeo pere kete luo kere wachini mano walo ki kum tiki yari ma kelo nyepe maraj. Now nyepe maraj inini kile mono kita ana ngeo kere waluo ni ngoni addiction.
True.
Ke wawayo ni nyepe malai kitiki yari ini no wati wacho ngo ki komeni
ikwa watie ki jame makawan watiyo kere uro chwinywa dak kelo wa imiri mitit kere mano don karwo laju wao chi amir wa ni kiet ma eno luone addiction obero jame ma wan watiyo kere madong kere wano rache po watwero joko tit kere like po watwero bedo la bon en ane kum jame ma kelo nyepe marach en ni watiye kedgi madong tiyo donyo e panyo bot wakany maro mo kwano abe kwano nyingi ka watika loko meta nyim and enido dugu chalo wa ni the next pandemic matika donye kum vulu wa magitie kadon antika attacking again in their most productive age chi wabinywa hotami ye an nyepe marach eneni cha mukene inono tek mi bwato jame yoni cha mukene nono tek mi nongo ne bene but kumi no mero
chibene no
chibene wang me no yes.
Okay. Wachini maybe tiete wa jimi ini ni madam chako nyepe kere mon ti charo ngiyo de kome mero ni no pena mo ko labo iramu tiete wa jimi ini ni tiji mango
addiction ma wana luone nyepe marachi ielaj but tiana be basing on substance addiction nyepe kum yen kum substance ni bedo jimi chalo kon ta mira jay cocaine heroin ice wachera yoche awinyo kalo tero mukana no wachi wani dano tika mato walwa wich ki pasqualam and watie ki jim mukana chala waini the illicit drugs in the hospital mapol kare no daktari be dak tika ticho ki yat pa no palotuo chalo pethidine watie ki tramadol jame ene makei tiyo kere ki chiel Iponi, sometimes you want it always. You get? And they're categorized in two categories. Ma chiel tie mati progressive. Ichako kichiel, di remark rio, idek mono bero chalo ko. Eto tie mukene ma kay ichako titkede. There and then you get addicted to it. That is the illicit drugs. Chalopethadine, heroin, cocaine, tramadol. Those are strong, high illicit drugs. Ma kay ichako titkede. Diga ko iye kunyo. Chalo ice kay mero no ne. Kiwai wilwetwa en ni kiken. Disali piara boro. So ka dong pere you are totally sick. Miri yele wange no. So itimu gumoy ken wang me no. Pian kumi mero.
Pat ke ice ma wan ngeo ni.
Pat ke ice
ke carry frichi.
Yes, pat ke ice me frichi. Actually, ile mono waluoni crystal meth.
Be itiyo factor.
Yes.
Utiyo ki jo madongo nyepeo.
Yes.
Made maduong. Ke nano ikin jo inini again itiye jo mada ke vulu bane. Ke ikin vulu kene statistics mamego no tie. To ko nano the level of nyepeni inini ikin vulu tie kiningo. To twali di gulu kain.
Yes, avoyo my friend Latisha. Ineno, kung machel ba kung kawai ni pakta dano muguro mo tamo ni pakta ni obedo ngo pian pol kara jo kene wai ikwanyo boda wai chwale pakta chwale dake bas pak. So pakta is an abbreviation machung for program for prevention, awareness, counseling and treatment of alcoholism and addictive substances. Now, one Wachako teach basically to have a home where we could have rehabilitation is just about 5 years back from 2018. Anyone Wachako operating. So according to the statistic, I want to know about the youth in northern Uganda. There was a study done by Makerere University. More rounding up ni 70.1% of the youth in northern Uganda must have tested some of these substances, especially alcohol. They have tested alcohol. And 39.1% use it on a daily. Mano percent madir maraj. Manyutini, the 70%, the only 20% is left who have never tested. And they're prone to be initiated by the ones who are in the 70%. So the risk and the risk factors are very high. So in a group of 10 people, you find 7 have already drunk. So the 3 are not safe. Why? Because keep betting at beer, welcome for betting at beer, welcome for and if you always go to the barber shop, you don't know haircut. Better way kumano. So ka in change you to be get jo mama ko. Jo mama to you kita. And gina be or lo tika titkere. I wait no andom pabe don kana. You're joining jo channel. And if you can't beat them, you have to join them. Then definitely you will start admiring kita gen get walk at it. And addiction to minyepe eneni enobero gin mama but ngat matiyu kere is very positive to it. Yo much winye full. That's why aki yeta. In spite the negative effects. Kere ngarmo mat kon for wa yo. Ki mare police wa bichel diri furu bu daktiar maroko. Kere ngarmo mak jae. Ki tongwa ki pale panga pikuo diri furu bu nero no tika mato jae. So the result and the effect is what the user enjoys. And he cannot let go of it. Any kita wan bulu wadong kumechanti ye kamoche. You know? Yeah, see, percentage in the one kita wan nano kere, one stakeholders mo atid nano kit kuopa bulu wa magidong gitie straight kumbede chawane. The percentage is really very high. And we call upon other people to come in so that we see how we can tackle and handle to help this youth in our community. Not only even on the streets, the ones in the school are the one prominent members to come to the street because of the negative results now.
Itiyo kedgi maduong' dari agane neng'eyo ken meneno ni nitie jomokena gitiyo kede kata wacho kede percentage pat aromo bedo ka tich ke waket ni ko amaro ko mugo kichel dwe achiel ma mugo na bedo kenda tata weka mak chupa achiel moko ento tie ng'ato mani madong kudiko chan kucho wiye chako kudiko chan bero watian puone pero motimo gimo mapando kitimo gini oni wa nerne kiningo ni ngoni gini ini do du lachi kuom ng'ato madong tika nyepe kere malai.
Yeah, the signs and symptoms pangat ma to nyepe marach. Basically, we have, it ranges from the mild to the severe signs and symptoms. Where in an ending do or nyepe marach, that is a person who has lost control over ngoma entity kere. Amero mi example pala mat ko. Ngaromoni we ne dong tika losing control over ko donye ba. First of all, ko ordering pi bia chupa chien. En bia ne kede table ti nyime wiyobu willo ni table ti nyime. So po kero bia wi table. Tiko bero kede ngo ichien. And he has a very prominent excuse ni en ko niki bi wole. En pe kero kone kien ping wakalaj woro ki kone. Tiaro donye kede kalaj. In that way. So in that aspect, the person is starting to have a mild attitude towards getting addicted to the alcohol. Alcohol is becoming part of his gen ma woro kere dong. Kita ne wana woro kichimi. By the way, very many people are also addicted to phones.
Very true.
You get? We call it okay, fine. We call it like, let me say, phone addiction. There's so many people who are addicted to it. And if you have your phone, you really feel so sick. You know? So there is that feeling, madonti getting addicted. When it doesn't have mamiroti kereni, ini ano way ngatane too awful. Ini ano way ni kumeliet. La mat ko ka inero pegi ko. Ini ano way ngat does not even function. But we are good ko. The body jumpstart and is very activated. It becomes dependent on the substance it's addicted to. Call it betting. If you don't bet today, tomorrow, you don't feel okay. You feel you have not yet accomplished what you have to do for today. You get? Then we have some of them, when they get into the severe stage, when they don't have it, they undergo what we call withdrawal syndromes. That is the shaking, the tremors. Some of them get to have seizures. So due to all those things that they feel and they experience, they always live in fear. To live without the substance. So definitely 24/7, the moment he feels he has a smile headache, the treatment is going to get the substance. And once he has the substance, he's okay. Then we have, like for the youth, most of them tend to become loners. And they become lonely in a way that they get detached from the people who matter in their life, like their family members. So it is prone to lead them to leave home and get into the streets so that they can get their fellow peers who do the same thing that they do, like what they are also doing. So living in fear because now you don't want your father, your auntie, you end up going, leaving home, and you go to the street. And that one creates a very big gap of loneliness that you can even witness in the person. Why? Because when you're troubled or you accumulate, you have a problem, nobody will help you. The only thing your colleagues can help you is to buy for you the very substance you use together. Baby no la mat ko mo mo bi chana ni ajal in kumilet ka de chere or yar ke non treatment. When ya we are ba wiji ni nyama rege na drikos mo de en. Mara ti bene bi winyu mabe. Yo mat jay. Jay konyo fuli kum tuo maduong nero. So you find them getting in to find very many ways of using the substance in the same way to get the same effect. Chala muke ana makitiyo ki jay muku no dong teda muku kerwe cookies muke ana mano yuaya muke ana mano nyama ke mera to get the same very effect. And the same applies to alcohol. There are very many brands of alcohol. You find that the person wants to drink this type today, tomorrow is drinking Jameson. It does not have a specific brand like a normal drinker. For him, he drinks what we call Rwanda Burundi. Yeah, you when I say Rwanda Burundi, atamu dano in Romanian. Imaro weng type weng tekmu or in America kara kumi. Why? Because they all have the same effect. Keremat beer, the result is you're going to get drunk. Keremat Jameson, the result is you're going to get drunk. And the same applies to marijuana, all these other illicit drugs. They are only mood altering. Like they change you from your state of normal calmness to a different state of a hyper living. So definitely there is what we call also machape. Obioro kan mori odak mungudak dugunuoyo moti. We call it restlessness. The person is restless. He does not know actually what he wants, but he wants to try to prove something. The moment he gets his substance, he's going to settle in one position and even not move. He will get calm, But most times, once he does not have the substance, he starts wondering, what does the body need in order for me to settle? You get?
Yeah.
Then we have physically, you start experiencing a lot of stomach complaints. Ngat maching juiti ko kokone an iya atiki ulcer na because ulcer be peto yar biono but doctor chi de wajo ni tiki ulcer. You need to be tested, But why does someone keep complaining of ulcers? For us in the hospital, once a person comes and says, I have ulcers, the first thing we ask, do you drink? Do you smoke? And if the answer is yes, we definitely know it is due to the production of toxic enzymes in the stomach to counter-react the very substance which is toxic, especially alcohol. So, the very toxic enzyme, mati acidic like corn. So definitely you will have the citric acid in the stomach and it has to counter-react with alcohol in order for the pH to come low. So to the user, it becomes very toxic in the stomach walls. So you start having that ulceration of the stomach walls and you definitely even call it your ulcer, But a person who takes milk will not keep coming to tell you that I have ulcers, will suspect that I have a stomach problem. Then we have elevated body pressure. Ko biene adiare pimo body pressure ne. Cha weng noti hyper. The pressure is high. Why? Because the body is getting to become more of the substance than blood. So pimo BP ne no not high. And then we have in the physical aspect, if you see someone is getting addicted, there is what we call forgetfulness. An addict cannot sleep today. They always sleep 3, 4, 5. So basically they sleep the next day. They're always in the next day. They're never in today. You get? And then an addict will forget that I needed to shower at 5. Or I needed to brush my teeth. So in his mind, the addicted brain will tell him, if you smoke cigarettes, it may kill even the bacteria in your mouth. So definitely he wakes up with a cigarette. And for us, we call it morning glory, And the morning glory goes with a military breakfast. The military breakfast is you don't take tea, you take alcohol straight away to counter-react what you took. last evening, or at midnight. Because basically you don't sleep today, So there's a lot of forgetfulness. He can ask you the same thing 7 times. And then you're like, you yourself, you even get tired of the person and you're like, mana hanin tika penya gyan anything, So there is forgetfulness, and that one, because addiction is a disease of the mind. The mind is one of the part of the body that is affected so much with addiction. Adamwa, kirmo watamo kere, chemistry ne lakeo. Ka ono ni mire luake kudiko, ka ko arofuri be tamane luakeo. That's why they look shabby. Bombe don't pick luako. You get? And an addict will always have a strange smell, which for him, he counterreacts by the smell of the substance he uses. You get? But to someone near him, you can be like, wow, it is very horrific to stay near this person. Na wo matika mwajidi wo akar ki nyimo pet kenyo awunya kiteri ya machel omeo even forgot to go to the toilet and he ended up just konye kome. So down when I do konye kome, I felt so bad because down that tika nyera and antina latini tika there no chan. We will he needed to go to the toilet. So he had to just do everything on himself. And he doesn't care about it. Then we have an addict. We call them consummate liars. An addict will never tell you the truth. Why? Because everything he is talking is driving towards winning your attention to have his substance. Kama mero chara kamato ko, obobiano pori wamba tuo ne an koma letful. A winyo chwinya mo ni kind letful, but there's nothing. Ini mi ali wapa ni mo ni kono ini wayo ini uncle. Before you know it, you're ready and more ton or talking more bar and chwinya yomata. So an addict, they are consummate liars. Pigi logada. And then also, you can never trust an addict with money. The moment you give him 20,000 to go and buy A, B, C, D, he's going to buy X, Y, Z. And at the end of the day, he will not mind of the main purpose of the money. He will always mind of his own purpose. So financial management for an addict is very poor. They're always in debts. An addict cannot earn a year without having a debt with 5-6 people. So making their life very constraining and very hard. There are so many signs and symptoms that if I'm to give, they're almost endless. Then, one of it also is they always complain they're sick. Because addiction is a primary chronic fatal disease. To weighing mawana winyu kono cancer, diabetes, pressure, chakeke come addiction. You first become sick, you suffer from a disease called alcoholism. Alcoholism is the disease nature of matoko. And pull down my doing picking in a matoko better to way. To me to you my mate, iri, in a way. And you need to my mate, then you definitely have to control, especially our pleasurable demands. Thank you. Yes. For you. Yes.
Now, mi o labol mo kane ikum tiyan may nana gidi guri ki vulu mo kane bana ma giti kian ping. Now, nyepe ni ini kwa nana ngo ki kome makelo piane olotono a ki kom kyo mo an para mo chako niyo ki mato kwa kek mada. Ko malime madi pare. Eto inong down no mi at again me ara madung chang ku diko chan kere di ching cham ka cham dek cham mar era no mir nyam kono jimi mari make nyam ni me ara ge jay mad bana so ngo makelo gini ini wa yin ngaro mani chao ni kome madung no pero mo ko la bo.
Yeah, when we look at the causes of addiction, it is also a very broad perspective. I would like to say the first one, we have what we call the genetical factor. If in your family history, one of your father, your grandparents have been an addict, it is most prone that one of the child will also become an addict. At least Ngarachiel is an addict. Most of the homes. So when you look at the family history, we call it the genetical factor. You get? If your dad has been an addict, that never an addict. So there, somehow, somewhere, we feel some pity for the child of the addict. You know why? Because he didn't want to be an addict, but just because he had receptors for addiction in his blood, the day he tested, he became an addict. Then we have poverty. In northern Uganda here, due to the war, which has been here for decades and decades of war, like 20 years of war in the northern Uganda, has left us with a very big hole of trauma and poverty. People are struggling to get to the normal way of economic status. So as people come to work, as people come to look for greener pastures in town, they tend to change their lifestyle. You know, in the village, it's not accessible to get this substance. Like you cannot get crystal meth in the village, and cannot get heroin. You get? Even though there's alcohol, but there's this brewed alcohol we have in the village, which is almost only given to the elders. But in town, it is monopolized and branded, you know? So once you come to town, you get your comfort by using those substances. So I can say poverty. Then we also have peer influence. We have people who come from different spaces and join us because we are a developing country, especially in northern Uganda here. We are a developing city, still a new city. So very many people are coming in and bringing in different lifestyles from different spaces, which is being adapted by our youth in our area. So we have the peer influences, and then we have family neglect. There are some parents who give up on their children. They fail to take their responsibilities of their children. And you know, family is the basic unit of all this initiative to help our youth in the community. Once the family is broken, definitely the child has to look for where he can find a family. And before you know it, he has joined another family of addicts. You get? So most parents are running away from their responsibilities, and children are left in a space of, where can I go? What can I do? And once they find these substances, they're comfortable living with it because it numbs their stress. It numbs the trauma, you know? It helps them to forget, just as I said, in the signs and symptoms, to forget that I even have a father, I have a mother. You get? I can live on my own, you know? So, family is one of the biggest aspect we have here due to the modified lifestyle where now people are trying to get blended family. So you find if your mom has left your father and has gone to another man, there's a way you don't have that family love, you know? Sure. Yes. And then we have the history of children who are living with relatives and they're failing to take care of them in the right way. So they tend to run away from that space and find a better place to live in. Other causes, we have, there are some, okay, before the other, I bring the other cause, there are some drugs also that people use. And the moment you test once, you get addicted to it. You get? So we call it try and error. Like the inquisitiveness of the youth. When you find they're growing in their adolescent age, they want to learn a lot of things, you know? So when they fall in that category of testing some specific drugs, like cocaine, enchwiri, crystal meth, the moment you test, you're addicted straight away. Then we have death and grief in the family. We have so many orphans in northern Uganda here who have been kept in Roman homes, and now they have grown up, and the truth has been told to them that, hey, by the way, for you, we just took care of you. Your mom and dad died long time, you know? So they're living in a space of so much grief that they need someone to talk to them to understand that people do die, you know? So in northern Uganda, yeah, it's a rampage. The statistics say about 65% of the youth here are orphans who have already grown up and try to live on their own, like try to create your own clan, you know? So once you get alcohol, you tend to have the other company of people who will be your brothers, your sisters, your mother, and your everything. Then also we hold rural urban migration, like people who leave the village and they come to town. I talked about it. They come to town, and then the life in the town is, they think it is for drinking alcohol and going to nightclubs, and yeah. Then we also have the health part, where we say people who are born with mental health problems, especially the ones suffering from bipolar, schizophrenia, which is also genetically transmitted. They are most prone to get into addiction, which helps to escalate and calm them down. And it is also a rampage here in northern Uganda. I can say the list is so many to a level that we cannot exhaust it. Yes.
Waneno dong makelo kata vulugi bergati megere lakom tiki yari mapari-pari. Meron dong niyang kata watika pakongage, wa meron niyang dong aduki tingo ikom ngan matiyo ki yari way level ni ano madong tiarang ngiyo kere ni.
Teach Kiyadi of being an addict. First of all, the effects is so much to the user, the level that you're overwhelmed and you cannot live with it. One of the effects is you always live in guilt of whatever you have done. By the way, a comedian said, the sweetness of alcohol is in how bitter it is. So however much you're taking alcohol, you know definitely it is something bitter. And something bitter by instincts, we know it is bad. So the moment you take your alcohol and you find you're having the hangovers, you know you took something which was not right. So we always prone to live in guilt. Then an addict is always ashamed of himself. He cannot present himself confidently in front of people. Why? Because he needs this substance in order for him to be confident. Then we also have always living in anxiety. Like something is wrong all the time. You don't see any positivity in whatever you're doing. Something is wrong. You're always worried about tomorrow. You're always worried about your next move. They always live in anxiety. It also leads to depression. For example, alcohol. Alcohol gives you an elevated mood, and before you know it, it starts depressing you there and then. And for them, because they don't love to live in depression, they need to take more so that they're elevated again. You get? And the moment the alcohol is not there, you are depressed. That's why there is a lot of alcohol-related death, or people who just sleep in the house and in the morning they find them dead. Why? Because they drank so much, and the depression they had when they were sleeping was also so much. So at the end of the day, they get what they call a blackout, organ failures. And then we have, they're always stressed. They have negative stress disorders. Stress is good for life, but then for an addict, it is always a negative stress. It is always a reason for them to use. Then we also have anger. They are always angry with people. Very small things like this get them agitated and they want to fight. Why? Because their body is living in a space where they cannot live in peace with another person unless you are of use to him. So they're always having anger. And then addiction is a very jealous kind of disease, to a level that once you start getting addicted, the only thing the body wants is what you're addicted to. So things like food, tea, what helps the body to grow, it starts getting eliminated in your life. So you may find an addict eats once in a day or once in a week, but drinks every day. Of which when we bring him to the hospital, we call it he has a low appetite. Then we also have they get malnourished, like the body feds off. Why? Because they are more of feeding the drug, not feeding the body. Even when he eats food, before the food lands in the stomach, there is already alcohol in the stomach. So all the food values that are very good to help nourish the body is burned down in the alcohol. Others is even captured when it's still in the lungs, when he has already taken marijuana. So for him, he thinks he's taking the marijuana to increase the appetite, but at the end of the day, he's feeding the marijuana. And the marijuana is burning all the food values that the person is supposed to have. Then we have low performance. However much the person was so good at the workplace like this. Let's even leave the people in the street. We are even in workplaces. We have people who are addicts. You get? So you come to realize that the performance of the person starts to deteriorate. This so good person that you know was very oriented, well delivering in the organization, starts to deteriorate, starts coming late, has a lot of complaints. He is always having a messy work, no signing in of documents, poor financial management. You get? And all that gets back to the user. There is what we call constant demand of use. Whether you want it or you don't want, you can even go to the shop to buy cooking oil. But if they give you some balance, you're like, okay, you give 2 spots, like you have that impulsive action towards the substance you're using, you cannot take control of yourself. They are always unhappy. That's another point. They are never happy. They never appreciate the little things that is done to them. Then I talked about loneliness. Then also we have what we call hallucination and suicidal thoughts. Most addicts, they reach into a state where they tend to give up with life and they're like, I'd rather let go. So generally, addiction has so many negative effects than the positive effects.
Are there really positive effects?
Yes, I have one that I know very well. Addiction helps to reduce the population.
Only positive, wrong ba?
When the population is too much, you just bring alcohol, they will die. Yeah. And then we also have family breakage of relationships. This one goes mostly because addiction is a family disease. You find that most children are neglected because the husband, the father and the mother broke up due to addiction. You get? So that one is also another one big cause, but is also an effect to the child of the addict. Yeah. Thank you.
Afoyo. Now, ngomo aromo timone. One enong na pin mapiara tek loyo. Ka dong ngato mani dong ano dong teki peko ni ini. Piani ganangyo tie ni mano. Polgi pe ye ni gitiki peko. Iromo neno yon macharo yon lanyoro. yan machalo yung mego nyola mego ineno ting'eyo ni ng'oni omera ni tiki peko nyola tiana ni tiki peko ento en weko ye ni meno en tiki peko weko chi nung kony pe yon so ng'o moro motimo ne in case dong waneno la nyot ini ti nyota kom ng'ato mani machak ked weno.
Yeah, one of the good things about addiction is it's treatable. It can be treated. But we always try to fight so hard to avoid the other two results. That is insanity and death. If ngan mati addicted, jima death ene merote make one, and the result is astonishing. Pu penny diri bit beru koma en. Magamera to warati pori ngata tika world dori town. And that's what we call a level of insanity. Then I talked about the sudden death. We as stakeholders, especially PACTA Uganda, we offer the treatment and rehabilitation of these people. I would like to talk about the treatment aspect. When a person is addicted to alcohol, study shows that once the person has been rehabilitated and taught at a treatment center where it's totally detached from the external environment, the person is prone to change its attitude towards the substance use. Through psychoeducation, group therapies, one-on-one counseling, to dig deep to know what triggers the person is having for use. So, if you are an addict to alcohol, you can go for treatment in a treatment and rehabilitation center. That is for 90 days. Then, if you are addicted to other illicit drugs, the period of time for recovery and treatment is 180 days, even more, because most addicts, you find you have used for 10 years, and even 180 days cannot counteract the period of time you've been using. So the more you go for your days at the treatment center, you can always recover. Then we need to develop support groups. We have in Gulu City, we have already the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, which happens in Christchurch every Tuesday from 6 to 7, where members who were once of use to alcohol come together in a fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous to share their strength, hope, and experience with this disease of addiction. So once you come, you can always see where you are, see where you are going, and see where you came from through the experience of another person in this sharing. The meeting is anonymous, and confidentiality is one thing that we really take. We don't share what we talk in the meeting to other people. So it is totally based on peer-to-peer recovery. You can go for an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, which we have already started one meeting in Gulu. That is under the support groups. Then, trying to introduce awareness and sensitization to the community about the nature of this disease. Why? Because it is already on a rampage and it's taking people without warning. You know, you just get to realize your son is smoking marijuana and you never even couldn't suspect him to have been doing that. So we need to create more sensitization and awareness, both in schools and in the community at large, of which there's an initiative we are trying to do, that we want to work in about 15 schools to do a sample study by creating a club called Sobriety Club, where school-going children can be in the fellowship of the Sobriety Club to help them achieve their dreams in school and keep them sober without any mood-altering substances. So far, we have gone to about 3 schools, and most of them will be oriented next year because the year is ending and most of the schools are doing exams. So those are some of the initiatives we are trying to do to help the youth. Then we also have, we call it training of trainees. You get? We need to get into our societies and create ambassadors. Train these peer leaders in order to teach the others, you know? Because youth to youth, it is more result-oriented than someone going to lecture them. Why? Because an addict will always be an addict and they don't like to be lectured. So once they are talking in the space of their own peers, we need to train leaders in all our divisions, all our communities that will help talk to their fellow youth by forming youth groups. Then we also have support networks like opening football associations. We call it essential to sobriety, and then support groups, sober friends and families, where therapists and counselors can come in the community, the way we are doing with hashtag. By the way, I want to thank hashtag so much because they've given me that platform to reach in so many communities, to talk to them, and I really get the feedbacks. People do call me and they are really inquisitive about this pandemic of addiction, you know? So getting to the communities is one of the things that we need to do. Then also, we need to support the youth in all the initiatives they're doing. Because of addiction, I've never had the youth even receive their financial money, you know? There's money for the elder, there's money for the youth, there's money for women. But the youth have always never gotten their money. Their money is channeled in one way or the other by organizations. Why? Because the youth have become vulnerable to addiction, you know? So we need to give them the space to also develop because they're the next stakeholders. Then once we treat them and once we have identified some of them who have lost path in their way, we can restore them by skill training them and reinstating them to get back on their feet. That support can be done by very many stakeholders that are here in northern Uganda. You know, you cannot just talk to someone and you don't show someone the way, you know. For example, I've had here in hashtag, we do the agricultural skill training, which has helped so many youth to get out of addiction and get focused into life. Then to add, the last one is trying to train youth about relapse prevention skills. The disease of addiction is a relapsable disease that if you are not prone, if you don't stand your ground, you can easily go back to square one. And once you relapse, you don't use the same way you used to use. You get? So we need to teach them, however much we have told them that there are substances people can get addicted to, we should also let them learn the relapse prevention skills and measures. Thank you. Addiction is real and we need to stand our ground. It is a personal disease. We the ones who get into it, but we should also have a plan to get out of it. Thank you.
Afailu winywa ten kita wabere ka winywa kere wala ko Mark maake pakta Uganda dagbana wanywa matura dai kom yeri mapari pari menu ten wati ukere ke vuli weken gang ke kita yeri idini bero ka adukine bero ke komgi ke do ngom wara motimone jomagira mo miyo tamgi magitam nigiti tam magira mo miyo ne kom lagman ramo winywa radio patches cha da kwen chawari mo chawada mo tiano nyobena ramo goni wachim inamba jero ada abungwana ada piara rewi angwen, piara dek wi achiel, piara dek wi abungwen. Nyobena ramo chwale wa email info@gulu.org. Ramo nongwa bena social media handles wa mapari mate #gulu. Afoy matek wa nani alamukana afoy.
Thank you.